Who else is tired of watching slave movies? What's good in the hood, family? You are listening to a Trip to India podcast, and for today's episode, we will be discussing this New Year's film, Antebellum. Antebellum was directed by the directors from Get Out, also Gerard and Christopher Renz. So, before I get into it, I do want to give a disclaimer that there will be spoilers in this episode. So if you have not yet seen it, or you hate watching something that people give away already, then don't listen and don't watch. I watched this movie twice, by the way. So the first go around, I would have gave this movie a 5 out of 10 at best. And then the second time around from watching it, I'll bump it up to a 6 out of 10. Alright? If we want to be fair. And I'll tell you why. Well, before I tell you why, I'll have to give credit where it's due. There were some pros about this movie. One was the actors did very well. They did good with what they had to deal with. You get what I mean? I don't feel like this was the fault of the actors. I really feel like it was the fault of the writers, because the plot felt weak. So let's get into the real nitty gritty, what I didn't like. So I'll be honest. For one, the trailer was misleading because it marketed itself as like a sci-fi film, which it was not in the least bit. It also said that it was like a horror film. It was not. And I'm gonna tell you why I feel like, after watching the movie, why I feel even more insulted by the fact that they marketed it as a horror film. The only horror that they felt like that they were perpetuating was horror to African Americans or black people. It didn't matter if you were descendants of slaves or not, but just like any black person in America. And that shit was annoying. Cause for one, who else is tired of watching slave movies?
What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
They better not make another goddamn slave movie again, okay? My children will be fine. They will watch what we got, which is a plethora of movies to go to. But God willing, whenever I do have kids. But yeah, no more. We are done with slave imagery. I think we have more than enough to go through. So yeah, that was another critique. It felt like, if you watched the trailer, that it was like a reimagined Kindred by Octavia Butler, which had like a similar feel to it. There was a woman in the present, just like Veronica Henley, Janelle Monae's present day character is, or whatever. And then the main character in Kindred, she gets snatched back like through time travel, basically back into slavery times. Like she literally goes back into And then for here is like Eden gets kidnapped by white people that basically are still butthurt that slavery is over and the Confederates lost, basically. The project to me as a whole felt rushed, and this is why I didn't like it, because the plot twist was horrible and insulting. So for those of you that don't understand what I'm saying right now, the plot twist was basically that she never went to the past. This is all present. There is a reenactment park, basically, of the Civil War, and basically where it says "do not trespass" is just like a cover for where they are really capturing black people and bringing them there to that current plantation, and have successfully gotten everyone to assimilate and become modern day slaves. That pissed me off. Cause you got me, you got us, you got us messed up. If you really think that any one of us currently isn't ready to die, like if y'all try to put us in that situation. So that was one of my main things that irked me about this whole movie, was once we finally got to the plot twist, it was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is it? This is where we at? Like, this is what's supposed to be so horrifying, is that it's still able to happen right now? Now, going into the second round of it, the reason why it was more entertaining, the reason why I gave it one more point up, was because it was better to see the different clues that they tried to leave in the beginning of the film to let you know that this was still current day. Also, never saw not one airplane in the actual movie. You know, in the trailer they show it as if like they look up and it looks like it's just like a glitch of like a parallel universe of like the airplanes or whatever, and then it seems like it's gone and they all like whatever. So yeah, that never happened, but I do get what was going on. You can hear the sound of the airplane and they knew that they were around. One of the clues was right in the very beginning, the first female slave in the green dress that tries to run away. She had a septum and she had a gold chain. That, for me, the first go around was like, made me like, you know, wonder a little bit, like what's going on, because I don't really think they would have gave them the luxury back in slavery times to even have that type of jewelry. I know for a fact they wouldn't, actually. Janelle Monae, who plays Elizabeth, she also gave clues too, and she got on my last nerve. For one, her accent was getting on my last nerve. The acting was just like, well, okay, it's not the acting, it was the writing. The writing just did not make any sense. So, anywho, they're joking in the present time. She thinks, she's answering the call because she thinks that they have seen her somewhere else and they're interested in booking her. That's what it seems like. And while they're talking, Elizabeth is throwing shade towards Veronica Henley because she has been on a lot of news lately promoting her book, which is about the plight of African Americans, basically, and shedding away that and her trying to incite a revolution. While they're talking, Veronica makes a comment about how she said, "Are you one of the headhunters?" And Elizabeth starts laughing hysterically, and she was like, headhunter. I don't want to do it. Like, I guess you would say that I am. So basically she already let her know, without letting her know, that yeah, she is one of those people that goes out and recruit whichever the next black person that she is going to capture. Now, another thing that I got from the book, from the movie, it seemed as if like they specifically chose successful black people. Eli, his character, we learn when he dies that basically he was a professor. Julia, she gives it away as well. When she first gets there and the commander is talking about how this is a reforming plantation, and he says like, forget about any of the freedoms that you had before you got here, because none of that matters here anymore. For one, they had two rules. One rule was they couldn't talk, and the other rule was if they were going to sing, that it was going to be in a whistle, which also, you know, gives it away a little bit that it's in the present, because we know that historically Negro spirituals were the way that they used to communicate. Another thing they gave away was when Eli started whistling, "Lift Every Voice and Sing." That had my antennas go up as well, because Lift Every Voice and Sing wasn't written until 1900. And we all know that the Emancipation Proclamation happened in 1863. And yes, it took a while because we know about Juneteenth, how Texas was the last to know, in 1865. So basically, it couldn't have been back then. So one more thing that annoyed me was basically once it finally dragged its way into the plot twist, which took forever in my opinion, and they really could have just did a whole different plot twist. Because to be honest, the plot twist is what fumbled the whole movie. So, was the cell phones. You mean to tell me you knew they had a cell phone this whole time? So it was like, when they finally got to the scene where Eden is in the bed with, it had to be Elizabeth's father. That's what I kind of connected the dots to be, or whatever. While they're in bed or whatever, they're asleep. And he gets a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now this is after they didn't reveal the whole plot twist or whatever. And she hears him on his cell phone. I can't tell if that's the first time that she ever saw that he had a cell phone, or if this was just like her day to use it or whatever. They get the cell phone and realize that they can't use it because obviously they had to make sure that it made sense for why they wouldn't have left already, because that would have been a question in mine too, like just, you know, drop a pin, use a cell phone. So luckily her cabin that she's in is the only area in there that has service. I'm assuming there's other areas too, but for right then, you know, that's the only area that has service or whatever, because her and Eli tried to leave. It dragged so long when she called 911, and dragged so long when she finally called her husband Nick. Girl, if you don't just drop that pin and get to going, and then like it was just damn train, get on my nerves. It was just the fact that it really felt like the writers were like, okay, we want this, we want this, we want this. I don't know how it's gonna work, but we're just gonna all put it up in there anyway. Because once you got to the end and she pulls down the Confederate flag after she knocks him out a little bit, and she puts him on her and drags him into the shed where they basically cremate the black bodies for no evidence. I get that part, I guess. It was just, it wasn't for me, I guess. It was too forced. That's exactly how it felt to me. It was forced. So basically, I get it. That's like the big at the end that's supposed to get the audience like, yeah, girl, stick it to the man, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that's not how I felt. I was like, girl, if you just don't get up out of here. Eli done already died. She went back to Eli after that. I'm like, girl, he done already died. It's time for you to get up out of here. They let you know throughout the movie that she is equestrian, that she knows how to ride horses or whatever, and that came into her advantage at the end when she finally stole the horse or whatever and was trying to leave out. So as she's going and going, yeah, she has to fight Elizabeth or whatever, blah blah blah, because obviously she knows how to ride horses as well. And I only say that because those of you that watched it already, y'all saw how the man that was chasing behind her, because he wasn't as skilled as Eden, that's how he tripped or whatever. But Elizabeth was, so that's why she was able to catch up with her. And then they had their whole fight scene that needed to happen. And then it gets to the point where like they get past, you see where it says like no cell phone service zone, no trespassing, and then you get into the reenactment part. And like nobody is paying attention to her. And it's like, it gives you this idea like, do they know what's going on too, or I don't know. So as she's leaving out, all of a sudden conveniently the FBI is on their way to the park that she's at because she successfully put the pin down. it was a no. It was just a no for me. I'm sorry. I'll watch it again, obviously, because just looking at the different clues, I didn't get into all of that because that wasn't the point of this podcast. It was for me to give you my honest review, and to be honest, I'm sticking with my 6 out of 10 because y'all got us fucked up. There's no way in hell that any of us are going back to slavery. Just saying. And it gives too much credit to the design of slavery back then. Now I can understand how it was successful back then, with the language barriers and the lack of weapons, basically. The fact that they had firearms and Africans didn't. That's it. Because as of right now, there's no way. And for what? Us picking what? Cotton? No, that's never happening. So, I don't know. It was just very insulting. You can still watch it. It's okay. It's not horrible. But it was definitely triggering. So, yeah, if you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please feel free to follow me on YouTube at A-Trip, the number 2, India, INDIA. Also follow me on Twitter at A-Trip, number 2, INDIA, 2 A's at the end. And follow me on Instagram at 2_ take a trip, the number 2, India, INDIA. And please feel free to send me suggestions on what else you would like for me to talk about. But this is my review on Antebellum, and I am out.